Boys, it's the debut. You're actually going to see Tau in Dawn of War 2 Elite Mod. Now, you're going to have to watch me, so I do apologise. I did go random here, and that's why I've got Eldar and the Spider. I would never play the Spider otherwise. You guys know that. Come on, you know that, don't you? And we're up against Vagrant Table. Really odd name. But yeah, he's going to be playing the XV8 Crisis Commander here. This chunky boy. So, starts off with a burst cannon, doing a little bit less damage than a Tech Marine, but pretty good range DPS. He can be suppressed, he can take cover, but he is knockback immune. He also has a jump by default, but don't worry. With this much HP and knockback immunity, it is not a full jump. In fact, it's a very short jump, which can be useful for moving around without taking damage, because while you're jumping, you have the 90% damage resistance. But, catch this, if you use the jump just to walk somewhere, you'll actually move slower than if you walk, because of the time that you spend winding up the jump. That's how short range it is. You see it here. But it allows him to get away from the Banshees without taking any damage in the meantime. And now he's just going to kite me with the XV8. Which is a good thing to kite the Banshees with, really, because he's not back immune, so these specials aren't knocking him over. So he's just going to run back to the base, and he's gone for double Fire Warriors Pathfinders opening. So Fire Warriors, as you see down here, these guys are Guardians on crack. They've got about 49 DPS to the 43 or so DPS of Guardians. Tactical Space Marines have about 46.5 DPS. So, yeah, as you can see over here, they do a hell of a lot of damage, and unlike the Guardians, they've got more health. They've got 800 health, not 500. This is a lie. They are actually light infantry. The entire Tier 1 roster of Tau is light infantry, and so they're actually quite vulnerable to the piercing damage coming out from the What Spider XRK. Pathfinders, not quite as tanky as the Fire Warriors. Don't worry guys, I will have a full guide for Tau eventually. Unfortunately, the time crunch has been a bit difficult, but it will come. We're going to have a lot of matchups to go over. And honestly, team games and they're also going to be quite a feature. I'm even going to consider casting 3v3 because, man, the late game of Tau is just a beautiful thing. And it's tricky to see it in a 1v1. I've played a lot of 1v1s, and this is probably one of the better ones I've had, so there you go. Anyway. Fire Warriors here, just kiting me. Again, I don't want to fight these guys in range. They do way too much damage. I'm just going to force melee with the What Spider. He's a hybrid commander. He's got decent melee. And then, of course, my Guardians can come in and pew-pew him. And so, what I've found with this sort of matchup with Eldar, you're going to notice Vagrant in a minute is going to go for Vespid Stingwings. You'll remember them if you played Dawn of War 1. Now, these guys, they're pretty tanky with 1000 HP for a cost of 350-35. They do okay melee damage. Not as much as the crew, which you're not going to see in this game, but they do more DPS. These guys do about 100 DPS on the squad, Crew do about 126, and Crew are power melee, these guys are only normal melee, so do the maths. Either way, what I found is that they're very tanky and they're annoying. You don't really need the power melee against Eldar, so Vespid are just so good. And because Banshees are really expensive compared to things like Slugger Boys and Hormagaunts, you can't really get as many Banshees as you can those other melee units. What that means is that if you're relying on your Banshees to fight the Vespid, there'll be open targets for the Pulse Carbines of the Fire Warriors doing that 49 DPS piercing, and your Banshees will melt. To cut a long story short, what that means is... Oh, I didn't go offline, great. What this means is... it's actually very difficult to play Shuriken Eldar against the Tau. So I like to go for double ranges. I'm trying to bleed a few models here. I think... Ooh, wow, he actually gets out with 3 Vespid. That is very lucky. Can I snipe down any more models? Again, using the Spider here to tie up the Fire Warriors who are shooting the Banshees. Yeah, I do get another model. He stayed in for quite a while. And there we go, getting a Fire Warrior as well. That's nice to see. Just trying to disrupt them a bit longer. Pathfinders moving up. So Pathfinders, let's talk about them for a little bit. Much squishier than the Fire Warriors. They only do 28 DPS, not 49 DPS, so way lower. However, they're cheaper. So Fire Warriors are 350 requisition, these guys are only 230, so they're a lot cheaper. But you really use them to counter melee more so. They're a support unit or a soft melee counter, because they move at speed 6, whereas Fire Warriors are speed 5. So you run these guys around the side, cheap, capping. They do a little bit of DPS. They have a photon grenade, which is basically like a stun grenade that they can shoot out. And it will snare infantry. That gets improved. It gets a bigger AoE and a better snare and longer duration if you get the squad leader in tier 1 on the Pathfinders. And the squad leader in tier 1 on the Pathfinders actually has an ion rifle, which does inferno damage in tier 1. Which is a bit of a... Inferno damage is a bit of a common occurrence for Tau. And no faction so far in the game has ever had inferno damage in tier 1, but again, this is what Vespid have. They're neutron blasters here, shooting out their green zappy is actually 8 DPS inferno each, so really not that bad. You know, they're basically doing the same DPS as the pulse carbines of the Pathfinders, except it's inferno damage, so they're literally better melee, better ranged units than Pathfinders, but as you can see, they're also very competent melee units as well. Vespid are really, really good, and I think they absolutely shit on Eldar. I think this build from Vagrant is exactly what you should do against Eldar in 1v1. Double Fire Warriors. Do not go double Pathfinders. Double Fire Warriors, because the Fire Warriors will outtrade the Guardians, and honestly, they just do so much DPS. You can DPS down Banshees quite easily. You don't need the snares from the Pathfinders. You'll also find it really hard to hit the Photon Nade on the Pathfinders, because there's quite a big wind-up on it. So fuck it, just go for Fire Warriors, and then you see the Vespid can tank relatively well with their 1000 HP. Obviously they'd lose this 1v1, but the Banshees are getting melted because they don't have as much HP as Vespid, and they're getting shot to pieces by the Fire Warriors and the Crisis Commander. And again, the Vespid save their jump to fly after the Banshees, and look at this, pew, 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 kill me with their neutron blasters. So a really powerful hybrid unit here. They don't have the DPS of other melee jump squads. Well, they actually do have more DPS than Raptors and ASM and Interceptors, but they don't have the DPS of Stormboys. But yeah, the fact that they've got these really powerful guns gives them some fantastic retreat killing capabilities. Now, I did get to tier 2 before Vagrant, but fortunately for him, he's very much in this game because he just snagged a kill on my Watt Spider Exarch because I was too busy crying about how good the Vespid are. He also wiped one of my Rangers earlier on with a Vespid, and yeah, now he's got the Banshees as well, so pretty rough for me. He's obviously got a bigger army now, but I'm ahead in tech. I used my global to call down this Warp Spider squad. Now, Warp Spiders, obviously, I don't know if you're aware, guys, absolutely massive amount of piercing DPS coming out of these guys. And like I said, the entire tier 1 here of the Tau is light infantry, so these guys are an obvious choice. But you'll see, Fire Warriors scale very well against other ranged units. I mean, they already are out-trading the other light infantry. They've got a lot of traits that help them beat heavy infantry, but we'll talk about them more in games where it's relevant, when you're fighting maybe Space Marines or Ordo Malleus. But even against something like Warp Spiders, Fire Warriors scale very well. So you can see he's getting his Shazwi squad leader here. So he is not die last. He's not a detector or anything like that, but he's a tier 2 leader. He comes with his own pulse rifle, so not a pulse carbine. So even if you don't have the pulse carbine upgrade, this guy will come with a pulse rifle. And pulse rifles are range 44 weapons with inferno damage. And he does about 16 DPS compared to the 12 DPS of a normal Fire Warrior. He also gives you basically an aim in what stat. So that's the ability from big shooters, from the Orcs, where you can click a single enemy squad and it will temporarily suppress them for a bit. You can see him here with his unique army colours at the front. So that is the Shazwi. And basically, I mean, just the DPS now is getting a bit crazy. They're at 60 DPS. You can see the Warp Spiders out in the open. Just that is not where they want to be. But also they're getting really quite tanky as well. And they can purchase a shield drone to accompany them as well. Now it is another 15 power. So you are, you know, you're putting a lot of resources into him here. So he's getting pulse rifles as well. 90 requisition, 25 power on that bad boy. So yeah, his Fire Warriors, he's really pumping the resources into them, but they are going to absolutely decimate my ranged units one-on-one. You can get a passive upgrade on them as well, which will give them 10% extra HP damage and an ability to ignore cover, as well as increase their range at the cost of a mild DPS reduction. But net, the DPS reduction is way more still to units in cover because you're ignoring cover than if you weren't using it. So very, very strong, and you're going to see that being relevant because Warp Spiders generally counter ranged units because they jump into combat, right? So if you've got Warp Spiders, you should always have a cover advantage against your opponent because you can jump, you can teleport. So don't fight an enemy without a cover advantage, just teleport behind them so they haven't got cover and so that you have cover. But Fire Warriors just turn around and use that ability and they ignore cover and the Warp Spiders just melt. So it's a bit dodgy. Still, here's a full roster of light infantry. I need to get more Warp Spiders because I lost my Banshees as well, which means I don't really have a good counter to the Vespids now. So Warp Spiders, pretty good counter. Going to do a lot of damage at range to them, and then they can just teleport away when the Vespid jump in. So Vagrant is going to go for stealth battle suits. Now, this is an interesting one. So stealth battle suits, they're infiltrating, jumping, heavy infantry. So they're the first heavy infantry, and in fact, actually the only heavy infantry option for the tower roster. They've got a few super heavy infantry, but this is the only heavy infantry. Oh, and he's also got the Fusion Blaster on his commander now, the only AV on the field at the moment. But it's not really proper AV. It's a melter gun. So the actual AV DPS is not using it, doesn't snare, but it's good against everything. As you can see, I'm just trying to zone him out. But what he's done here is he's immediately purchased the Fusion Blaster on the stealth suits. And they have marker lights as well, so they've marked my Falcon, and they're going to pursue it, but unfortunately the Falcon's very fast, and I kept the Warp Spiders in play here, teleporting them this way to defend the Falcon from a pursuit, because in theory, these stealth suits could have jumped after the Falcon. But it would have been very risky, because it could have just forced melee with the Spiders. So this is, I think, where Vagrant kind of screwed up his composition. Oh, look at this as well. He's called down some medi support drones to increase the HP regen and healing of these nearby Fire Warriors. Keep them on the field a little longer. You can see the Inferno damage actually doing some damage to my Falcon, hilariously. Not a tremendous amount, of course, but they're tanking. Shield drone now present for these Fire Warriors as well, so that's an extra 15% damage resistance, I believe. Or it might even be 20%. And the Crisis Commander really going for it here. He's got the Command Battle Suit, a bit of a questionable choice. And there is the aim and what's that ability there. Quite literally, as you can see, pinning down that Warp Spider squad, but I'm retaliating with Crack Shot over here. So they managed to suppress me immediately as well. I think that ability is quite overpowered at the moment because unlike aiming what's that, it doesn't seem to actually reduce their DPS in any significant way. Which, yeah, that's pretty crazy. Probably needs to. When you use aiming what's that on your big shooters, I think you lose 90% of your ranged DPS. So just keep them out. 2 Warp Spiders split up here, so when one of them gets jumped by the Vespid, one just teleports away, the other one opens up, hoping to bleed them. I don't, of course, but at least we got rid of them. You see, this is what's quite nice about the Vespid. They're very tanky. They don't bleed models very easily. Crew, while they can do a lot more damage, do have a bit of a tendency to bleed models. Just going back to the stealth suits, they come out by default with burst cannons, much like the default weapon of the Crisis Commander. So high DPS piercing weapons, and in total they're doing something like 63 DPS with those burst cannons, and it's actually a very good counter to the Warp Spiders because much like the Warp Spiders, they should never be taking unfavourable engagements because they can jump and infiltrate. But unlike the Warp Spiders, they're heavy infantry, so the piercing of the Warp Spiders is going to do reduced damage against the stealth battle suits. But of course Vagrant here has gone for the Fusion Blasters in order to try and kill the Falcon. But he doesn't have a snare, because the only snare in the tower roster is their setup team with the missile pod. Missile drone, heavy drone squadron. Getting calling down those healing drones, keeping his Fire Warriors topped up with more HP. I mean, you do have to be very close to them to get that regen. I think the numbers are a little bit undertuned on this at the moment. Or perhaps the radius should be bigger, I suppose one or the other. because that's 100 red, that global. You can use it in tier 1, and the idea is you don't want it to be too strong, because if you've got a load of fire warriors in tier 1 in green cover and they use that global, they're going to be really hard to dislodge. And again, man, look at the Vespid. They fly in, a couple of kicks with their claws, and then a few shots with those neutron blasters. Range is getting absolutely wrecked. And I gotta get out of here. Obviously, I don't know where these stealth battle suits are. I know there's a flank coming from the Vespid. But I have actually been teching this whole time. I've teched a tier 3 just off the back of these double warp spiders. Remember, I got one discounted via the global bar. So now I've got an energy field on my Falcon. But I get a bit of a shock in a minute because there's a broadside battle suit. So these things are pretty mental. Tier 2 unit. Absolutely massive, super heavy infantry, 2000 HP. What's the drawback? Well, there's two drawbacks. One, can't retreat. As you can see here, the super heavy infantry armor is just shrugging off these warp spiders like nothing. And it's not bad against all targets. It's got some nice splash damage on the railguns that make it quite threatening. And its smart missile systems in its hands likewise will hit infantry fairly reliably. And they're inferno damage. No, they're not. They're autocannon damage. So they can even do a bit of AV. So you don't even need to be set up to do the AV. And a good shot there on the Guardians blobbing up trying to repair the Falcon is going to force them off. What's the other big downside of the broadside? Well, it can be hit by infantry stuns and snares, and also vehicle snares. So these are ways to try and actually let players kill it if it overextends. So you can hit it with a haywire grenade, and you can stun it with the autarch bomb. So it's got the vulnerabilities of infantry and vehicles. Now I don't know if Vagrant knows that. Obviously I've been testing this build quite a lot. He hasn't. He's just got access to it literally today. So I'm going to go for Seer Council. They'll be able to rush down the broadside. You can tie it up in melee. It does do okay melee damage, but it's only a single entity. I think it's like 40 DPS heavy melee or something. Obviously not going to be a problem for a real melee squad, and certainly not a tier 3 one like the Seer Council. But all the Fire Warrior DPS will be a bit of a problem. Fortunately for me, Seer Council do have that passive damage resistance aura to ranged attacks, which I believe affects the Seer Council themselves. But yeah, my shenanigans are kind of working, just ratting down the side of the map repeatedly. I'm ahead on VPs for this reason, even though I've lost so many units early on. Definitely going to have to retreat out of there with the Vespid jumping in. You can see here just the durability of the Falcon with the energy shield is crazy. It's only level 1 as well, so it's not even got extra bonus energy, but Fusion Blaster's just not able to kill it. I don't know, he could have used the marker light global, but I doubt it would have been particularly effective. But here's the Alpha Strike in the mid while Vagrant is a little bit distracted on the side with that. I've rushed in with my Seer Council. This is the first time he's seeing it, of course, and then I have the double haywire grenade, and I'm afraid Vespid have absolutely no business being here right now. Nope. Oh dear. Oh, they actually managed to avoid getting knocked over, which was lucky for them. Did manage to get a kill. Caught by the Fire Warriors once again using that aim and watch that ability. Pathfinder's rotating over. Looks like they've got a recon drone. So Pathfinders in tier 2 get a trio of drones that they can purchase. You're only meant to be able to get one at a time at the moment, though there is a bug to get multiple. I'm not going to tell you. But yeah, the recon drone is the combat drone. It gives you +5 sight range, and perhaps more importantly, an extra 200 HP model, the drone itself. And the drone does 15 DPS with its twin-linked pulse carbines, and it ignores cover. So, pretty interesting. It's okay. It's nice for sideline capping. If you're fighting something like scouts with their shotguns plus Sarge, just getting that recon drone can really give you the edge you need to always win those sideline capping fights. But it's ultimately only piercing damage, so depends what you're fighting. If you're fighting Space Marines, it's not going to help you very much. You'd be better off getting some of the support drones. You can get a pulse accelerator drone, which will give you a version of guide, essentially, to cast on nearby Tau units. You can only select one of them, but they get more damage and range. Very good on the Fusion Blaster stealth battle suits, but also good on pulse rifles, like if you're just fighting Space Marines. Just boost the range and damage of the pulse rifles, why not? But yeah, you can see at the moment Seer Council kind of going crazy. Obviously they're an extremely fast unit, very durable, being a tier 3 unit, and having that damage resistance. But they do, you know, they take the damage from the piercing. They are only normal light infantry. However, we are both bleeding. I mean, I only lost 2 Seer Council there, and he has lost a lot. I actually picked up the Watt Spider Exarch and got the Power Blades, but now walking into Vespid is not a very good engagement for me. I'm actually a little bit more focused over there on the Falcon. I think the Vespid might even get this kill here, which is nuts, because he looks like he has so much HP, but bang. Look at that. Yeah, Vespid, very, very good with the retreat killing. I've seen the medical drones coming in here, so I've thrown down a grenade. I've got a surprising amount of health for these medical drones. I was hoping the grenade would have actually wiped them outright, but I'm just going to DPS through it. The broadside's trying to set up his railguns, but I just keep moving the Falcon backwards and forwards to essentially stop his railguns from being able to hit me, and all the while, of course, I'm bleeding. My pun, I'm not bleeding. Well, I am bleeding a bit, but not that much. Bit of a strange one there. And you can see, though, the massive range on the broadside. 70 range, by the way, on the railguns when he's set up. I think the smart missile systems are only 38 from his hands. Not certain about that one. But yeah, 70 on the railguns is amazing. I think this thing's going to be amazing in 3v3. We'll see. It is capped at 2 for that reason. Just fears of it being too spammable in 3v3. I mean, that was unfortunate. It seemed everything missed there, but that's just sometimes how the cookie crumbles. So Vagrant here, I think he's just bleeding too many Firecast models at this point, so that's why he's kind of stuck. Stuck in tier 2. Forces melee with his stealth battle suits so that they can pursue fairly well. He did rotate that broadside, but once again, I'm just on him with the Seer Council. So he does use the jump there with the tier 2 strain leader from the Vespids, and that gives the jump on the Vespid suppression. Normally it's just flight, it doesn't suppress. And he's actually using the Barracuda strafing run there, which is spike damage and a damage over time and potentially even a suppression if you stay in it for too long. But honestly, he hit his own fucking Vespid more than anything else there. That was not the best Barracuda strafing run I've seen. And unfortunately, just a little bit too much bleed here. Now look at this. This is what you got to do versus Tau. I'm actually ferrying Guardians over to the Fire Warriors and going into melee with my Guardians on the Fire Warriors just to shut the damn things up because they DPS so hard. And finally, we see the correct AV choice, which is the missile pod on your tier 1 setup team. This is basically a las cannon, the heavy gun drone missile. And that's where you get your snare. So once you've got this, then you can go for these, or maybe the Fusion Blaster on the Crisis Commander, because then you snare it, so it's not so easy for a transport just to kite away. You've kind of got one opportunity with your stealth suits to do a bit of a alpha strike from infiltration or your jump pack, and you can buff them up to make that easier. If you're the Ethereal, it's easier because he has a speed buff, an energy buff, and a range damage buff. But even as the XV8, you can still use your Pulse Accelerator drone on the Pathfinders to buff these guys and then engage. But if you don't kill that vehicle in the first engagement, it's very predictable. And certainly by the time a Falcon gets tier 3 and starts picking up the shield, it's too durable. It's gonna be miles away before these guys have enough time to kill it. You're gonna need loads of them. And so I think it's a bit of a trap. These guys are very good with their default guns. As I say, their default weapons do approximately 21 DPS each over 3 models. That's 63 DPS. So you're talking like 1.5 TAC Marine squads on 3 models here that can infiltrate and jump, and a heavy infantry. They will outtrade the Watt Spiders as long as there isn't a significant cover differential. And even if there is a cover differential, you can counter that using the Fire Warriors. So there are options, but yeah, I think Vagrant had a really good tier 1, of course, wiping my Rangers, wiping my Banshees, and then killing my hero. He was pretty much in the game there, even though I was slightly ahead in tech. I think it was his favourable situation, but then some poor choices come tier 2. I think going for this Fusion Blaster, rather than going for the immediate AV setup team as soon as possible, was probably his biggest mistake. And then he paid for the Fusion Blaster on the Crisis Commander, which might have been... No, they called him Force Commander, can you believe it? On the Crisis Commander, which might have been fine had he already got this to snare the Falcon first. But that thing's 135 requisition, 35 power, because it is an anti-all weapon, so... I do question in general whether that's worth it or not. But I think certainly in this game, not having the snare on the Falcon and investing so much in melter weapons here, it's too much resources that are just not really that effective. Both of these units then with their melters are just really crap against Warp Spiders, and to be honest, just the DPS even against Guardians is not very good, so not worth it really. Broadside as well was highly dubious. I don't recommend going broadside against Eldar. I do think the broadside can be very strong, but against Eldar, there's a lot of things that counter it. Rangers will do very good damage from afar, from infiltration with their long rifles. Haywire grenades affect it and shut it down. The autark global bombs will stun the thing, which then leaves you open to being wiped in melee by Banshees or the Seer Council. And of course, Banshees and Seer Council both have fleet of foot, which makes them even better at pursuing than other races' melee units. So in general, I wouldn't go broadside. I would go for stealth suits, devilfish, back tech to the missile drone if you need AV. Because I think the opening was right and it was really strong. I suppose in theory if they start spamming loads of melee, like if I've got the Seer Council, if I had the Banshees, if I had the Autark, or if I was playing Warlock or Farseer, then maybe you could consider getting the Greater Narlock as well, which is a very powerful anti-melee walker for the tower. But there you go folks, that is just a glimpse at what tower are going to be looking like. I'll have a full guide on them properly soon. If you check the description, or maybe the comments, we'll see which one it is by the time this goes up. I'll actually have a written guide in there, but what I'm saying is I will eventually on the channel have a video guide. The Codex also is up to date now with Tau, but it's on a new website. Just join the Discord, the public Discord, and you'll be able to get all these updates. There's a lot of updates now. It's pretty much impossible for me to keep on top of them all. And the other final thing I've got to say is I am now accepting replayers on this Tau beta build. So I'm even accepting 3v3. So literally any replay, I am accepting any game mode. I'm not saying I'm accepting any replay period. There are some limitations in terms of the duration of the games. And I would generally prefer higher skilled games, but you know what? If it's a good game, send it my way. That's going to be all from your boy Torpid for now. Hope you enjoyed this one and are looking forward to getting on and trying out the Tau. Bear in mind as well, there is another hero. There's not just this one hero. There is also the ethereal hero, which I'm sure we'll get a good game to showcase him eventually. As I say, it's just, I've been trying, guys. It's really hard to get good games in a short period of time. So, you know, you do your part. Go get the good games for me. Send in the replays, and I can get them on the YouTube. Thanks, folks. Torpid signing out.